Good morning, committee, and welcome to any member of the public joining the 10th of June 2021 meeting of the Western and Southern Area Planning Committee, which is one of the three area-based planning committees of the Dorset Council. Our area remit covers the previous Weymouth and Portland Borough Council and most of the previous West Dorset District Council areas. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the council has had to put in place measures to enable the council's decision-making process to continue whilst keeping safe members of the public, councillors and council staff in accordance with the government's guidance on social distancing. As the regulations allowing decisions to be made at committee meetings from remote locations have now expired, the council has decided that the committee will continue to meet remotely and make a minded to resolution with an officer delegated to make the formal decision. The officer will make their decision immediately after the committee has voted on each item and will give reasons if their decision differs from the minded to resolution. Therefore, this meeting is being live streamed to the public, and a copy of the recording will be available on the council website following the meeting. Members of the public are invited to make written representations, provided they are submitted to Democratic Services by 8:30 no later than 2 working days before the meeting. These representations will take the form of written statements of no more than 450 words, with no attachments, and will be read out at the committee meeting by our administration assistant. For the benefit of the public, my name is Councillor David Shortell, Chairman of this Area Planning Committee, and my Vice Chairman is Councillor Bill Pipe. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members, and good morning to any members of the public.
I'd like to introduce other members of the committee now. Councillor Dave Bolwell. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Chair.
Councillor Kelvin Clayton. Good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, all.
Councillor Susan Cochin. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to everyone else at the meeting.
Good morning to you. Councillor Jean Dancer. Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Vice Chairman and members.
Good morning. Councillor Nick Arlen. Good morning, Nick.
Morning, Chairman.
Good morning. Councillor Paul Kimber. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Vice Chair, and everybody else.
Good.
Thank you, Paul.
Councillor Louis O'Leary. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning to you. Councillor Kate Weller. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning. Councillor Sarah Williams. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And finally, Councillor John Worth. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everyone.
For your information, officers involved in the meeting includes Mike Garrity, Head of Planning, Anne Collins, Area Manager, Western and Southern Team, Phil Crowther, Solicitor, Jenny Williams, Technical Support, and Denise Hunt, Democratic Services. May I advise the committee and members of the public that items 5A on the agenda, WDD 19002903, Osmondton Mills Holidays, Osmondton Mills Weymouth DT3 6HB, plus items 4B and 4C on the agenda, that's WDD 19001641 and WDD 20001117, related to 7 St Andrews Road, Bridport, DT6 3BG, have all been deferred to our meeting of the 8th of July 2021 for technical reasons, and these items will not be determined at this meeting. We'll now start with the agenda proper, and I start with item 1 on the agenda, apologies. Denise, do we have any apologies for this meeting?
No, Chairman, no apologies.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. does any member have any declaration of pecuniary or other conflict of interest, bias or predetermination regarding any item or the item on the agenda?
Chair, as Councillor David Bolwell, I wish to declare an interest, please.
Thank you, David. I
Yeah.
understand you're wishing to speak as well, so I will
Yeah.
include it on the agenda. Thank you for
Can I
that.
Can I just make this one for the record, please, Chair? As Chair of the Bridport Town Council Planning Committee that approved this application, and also as the person who approved this latest Town Council response under delegation, I'm declaring predetermination and will not take part in the debate or vote, but I wish to speak in my capacity as ward member.
Point taking, I fully understand that, Dave. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, is there any other declarations of interest? Okay. I would like to
Chair,
inform...
sorry, it's Councillor Sarah Williams.
Hello, Sarah.
Well, I was part of the planning committee. I didn't take part on the debate on this item, and therefore have not predetermined.
Fine. And so you'll be participating in
Yeah.
the debate and the vote. That's fully understand.
Chair, it's Kelvin Clayton. I
Okay,
was
Chair.
also part of this committee. And to be quite honest, I can't remember whether I took part in the vote or not, but I'm quite happy to approach this with an open mind now. Is that okay, or would you rather me not vote?
Yeah, no, I know that it's perfectly in order for you to vote because I believe that there's no pecuniary or conflict of interests.
There isn't.
That's correct. That's okay. I'm
Thank you.
happy with that. Is there any?
Chairman, it's Phil Crowther. Just to say, it's of course a matter for each member to decide whether they have predetermined the matter or not. And so for Councillor Clayton, if he's sure that he's approaching this with an open mind, and then that's a matter for him.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That explains that.
Could the chairman of the Bridport Town Council Planning Committee recall whether Councillor Clayton actually attended that meeting or not?
That's a very good question.
I did attend, Bill.
Yes.
I just can't remember whether I voted or not. I'm pretty sure I did vote.
I believe, for clarification, Councillor Sarah Williams did not take part in the debate or vote, and I believe Councillor Clayton did take part in the debate and voted, to my recollection.
Okay, does that make it any different, Phil?
Chairman, yeah, in my view, my advice would be that if any member has taken part in a debate and vote in another forum, then that would indicate predetermination on this matter, and my advice would be not to take part.
Okay, I will accept that advice and not take part in the agenda.
Okay, Karen. So you're declaring a predetermination then?
But that does still leave us quorum, Chairman.
It does. It does. Okay. There's no further declarations of interest? No. Right. Okay. I would like to inform the committee and members of the public that because this is an informal meeting of the committee, which can only make minded to resolutions, we are unable to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on the 6th of May 2021. This will be done at the next formal meeting. Public participation is item 3 on the agenda. The committee receives a number of written representations submitted in accordance with the amended speaking protocol effective from the 20th July 2020. That is, the first 3 public statements received an objection, and the first 3 in support, including the applicant or agent, will be read out by an officer not involved in the application. This number does not include representations received from town and parish councillors or by relevant Dorset councillors. The written statements have been circulated to all members of the committee prior to the meeting. The committee has received a written request submitted by a member of the public, and Mr. N. John Perrott, which will be read out by our technical support officer. I invite Jenny Williams to read out the question. Over to you, Jenny, and good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody. The statement is as follows. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, on January the 7th, this committee met to discuss, amongst other items, application WDD 20001703, land adjacent to Buckland House, Buckland Vipers, DT3 4FT. This was a full retrospective application that sought to change the condition of an earlier permission so that a toilet block could be permanently rather than temporarily sited on a campsite that was open for 2 months a year. During debate, Councillor Dunseith said it was supposed to be green, of modest size and removed in September. All of these conditions have been disregarded. They are not optional extras. Councillor Weller said, I increasingly wonder why we bother to have a planning committee if people can't be bothered to comply with conditions. It shows a lack of respect. Maybe we could save a lot of money and not having a planning department. These comments indicate that the subject of conditions was an important part of the discussion. The committee's decision said that authority be delegated to the head of planning to approve subject to the planning conditions as set out in the officer's report and additional conditions regarding the submission and implementation of a BMEP and a condition in respect of disabled access to the toilets and shower facilities to comply with the wording of the Disability Act, with these conditions to be agreed between the planning officer and chairman of the planning committee. The case officer report had a number of conditions which therefore should have been included in the subsequently published decision notice. One of these was condition 2, which said the toilet/shower block hereby approved shall only be operational and lit between 30th of June and 1st of September, inclusive in any 1 year. The reason given for this was for the avoidance of doubt given its associated use with the use of the adjoining land as a campsite between those dates only and in the interests of the visual amenities of the locality. When the decision notice was issued, no such condition was made. The committee's instructions to the head of planning were not followed. I would like to ask the committee why their decision was not followed and why this condition was omitted from the decision notice. The answer to this is the increasingly important as a further application has now been submitted, which seeks to double the months this site is open. The failure not to include a condition as instructed by yourselves is a failure in the democratic process. Not only does the visual amenity of the locality lack this protection, but it has disturbed the balance between those who seek to object to this latest application and the applicant's desire to gain further permission for yet further development. N. John Perrott. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny. I will now call on Anne Collins, the Area Manager for Western Southern Team, to respond to that question. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Perrott is correct. When we investigated this as a result of receiving the letter, it was spotted that there had been an administration error in issuing the decision. Unfortunately, the condition referred to in Mr. Perrott's letter was omitted from the decision notice and a standard 3-year operational condition was imposed instead. It doesn't matter that a 3-year operational condition was put on, that has no regard really. It was a retrospective plan permission, and I can only apologise that the other condition was missed off. The council would obviously normally have a number of options in terms of correcting this administrative error. If it had been realised earlier, there was the option to judicially review the decision, but that has a 6-week time limit. And as the decision was issued at the end of January, that has now passed. However, is it open for officers to consider whether we would make a modification to the planning permission? That does come with compensation rights, and that is something that officers are currently considering as to whether that is appropriate and necessary in the circumstances. And I will get back to you in due course, Chair, and to Mr. Perrott as well, the author of the letter, in respect to our response on that matter as to whether we consider it appropriate and necessary to modify the planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. That explains that. I will await further report on that. Okay, well, now proceed on the agenda, and we're now to item 4 on the agenda, planning application.
Chairman, before you proceed, I think as Councillor Kate Weller was mentioned in that letter, I think she has indicated that she would like to speak. Should you wish to take her?
Yes, I will, although of course it's not a debate over a question from a member of the public, but I will take your comment.
Chairman, indeed.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I appreciate it. I really, I hope it's not a debate, and I understand the pressures under which our planning department are working, and therefore errors do occur, and so no criticism is implied by this. But I just wonder whether members have any input into what officers decide on this, because this is a departure from the conditions that we placed, and we felt very strongly about it at the time, so I think that needs to be taken into account as the officers make their decision, even if that does have cost implications involved. That was all I wanted to say, really. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman.
That's all right, Kate. Thank you very much for that statement. I know that Anne will take that into account. Okay, we'll now take item 4 on the agenda, planning application, and we have only one application before us today for consideration, and that's item 4D, which is PFUL 2021-00148, West Rivers House, 13 West Allington, Bridport, TT6 5BJ, and that's the conversion of an existing 4 in number flat building into a 8 in number flat building. And I invite Hugh Williams, who's the case officer, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully the slideshow is already displaying. This application is made by Dorset Council and is reported to the committee in accordance with the provisions of Dorset Council's constitution for applications made by the council. As you say, the application proposes the conversion of 4 existing flats within West Rivers House into 8 flats. The application site comprises approximately 1,500 square metres of land on the south side of West Allington, close to Bridport town centre.
Hugh, could I just interrupt you there? Not everybody apparently can see your display as such. Councillor Jean Dunseith in particular can't see anything. Maybe that's a technical issue.
I'm open to any suggestions. I'm not sure what options I have in terms of control.
Let me ask the question then. Can any other members not see anything, or is it just Jean?
I can see.
I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it, Chair. Oh, that's actually better. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a plethora of I can sees. So, Jean, perhaps you'd like to ask Denise to resend you the link and slide back in again.
Yes, I'll leave and come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Jean. Right here, would you continue, please?
So, just on another point now, Chairman, now that Councillor Jean Dunseith has left, she will not therefore be able to take part in the vote, of course, because she will not have seen all of the presentation.
Chairman, it's Phil Crowe. I was just wondering whether we might pause until Councillor Dunseith is able to come back in so that she.
Yes, that was going to be my suggestion, Phil, that we actually hold for a few moments until she's back and logged back in.
Yeah.
So my apologies to committee and members of the public. We're having a short hiatus.
And apologies to Hugh, of course. He was just winding up to the big show.
No problems from my perspective.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt like that, but I'm just doing my chat bar role. Okay, Chairman, we're up and running.
Okay.
Over to you, Chairman.
Right. Okay, Hugh, would you like to start your presentation again, please?
Certainly. This application is made by Dorset Council and is reported to the committee in accordance with the provision of Dorset Council's constitution for applications made by the council. The application proposes the conversion of 4 existing flats within a building known as West Rivers House into 8 flats. The application site comprises approximately 1,500 square metres of land, shown edged red on this plan, on the south side of West Allington, close to Bridport Town Centre. West Rivers House, shown labelled 13 here, is a 3-storey building that is in mixed use, with the Oakram's community cafe, an office floor space on the ground floor, and residential accommodation on the 1st and 2nd floors. The building is also known as Boldwood House. Residential properties are located to either side of the application site. The Plottingham Pay and Display car park and River Brit lie to the rear of the site. Vehicular access to the Pay and Display car park is taken through the application site, and the car park itself provides access to buildings and facilities used by Bridport Town Council, the Bridport Sea Cadets, and the first Bridport Scout Group. The car park also provides access into the Plottingham playing fields beyond. Within the application site, there is a storage building that is occupied by Bridport Town Council, and also parking and vehicular manoeuvring space, with various of the existing spaces allocated to different users within the application site. My understanding is that the existing residential accommodation within West Rivers House has been managed by Magna Housing Association and has previously been used to provide accommodation for homeless people and people at risk of homelessness, but is currently vacant pending refurbishment. It's my further understanding that the proposed units are intended for occupation by people in housing need, the intention being that smaller self-contained units will provide a better standard of accommodation and a more flexible resource to meet housing needs. The aerial photograph illustrates the urban context of the application site. Bridport Town Centre being to the east, the Plottingham playing fields to the south, the River Brit running north to south past the site to the east, and the Bridport coach station on the opposite bank of the river to the southeast. The site photographs were taken quite early in the morning before traffic levels built up. West Allington is part of the main route through Bridport, so is normally fairly busy, but wasn't at this time of the morning. The application site is located close to the roundabout junction between North Street and West Street, West Rivers House being set back from the street frontage between historic frontage development that includes several listed buildings. Looking into the application site from West Allington, the storage building used by Bridport Town Council is to the right. And in the foreground, you can see the shared parking and manoeuvring space. Within West Rivers House itself, the Oakram's cafe is located on the western part of the ground floor, with the main entrance to the building and Magna's offices to the east. From the plotting and playing fields to the rear of the building, you can see the pay and display car park, the River Brit passing beyond the river wall to the right, and the facilities of the Sea Cadets and the Scouts to the left. There's a footpath link from the park across the river towards the coach park. This shot being from that footbridge and illustrating the close proximity of the application site to the river, and also boundary fencing which marks the extent of the southern extent of the application site. At the rear of West Rivers House are 3 enclosed curtiladed areas, one providing a garden facility for the O'Crumbs Cafe, the other 2 quite small spaces being behind existing offices, but being with access available from communal areas. West End Road to the east of the application site is a short residential lane. This view from the end of the lane shows part of the side elevation of the property, including existing windows looking towards the neighbouring neighbouring property. The final site photograph is from within the application site and shows part of the existing parking provision for the building and the manoeuvring space. Residential properties bordering to the right, and Bridport Town Council storage building to the left. The proposals map of the adopted local plan shows that the application site is located entirely within the Dorset area of outstanding natural beauty, and also within with the development boundary for Bridport running along the back of the building, and excluding from the settlement area the pay and display car park and the Plottingham playing fields. The same boundary line identifies the limits of the Bridport conservation area, again with the building inside the designated area, the car park and the playing fields being, or much of the playing fields being, outside of the designated area. A plan showing the local the designated heritage assets in the vicinity of the site, the blue line being the limit of the conservation area, and the red stars identifying listed buildings, including those along the frontage in West Allington. The implications for designated heritage assets are addressed in the report and are considered to be acceptable. The Environment Agency's flood risk for planning shows the application site to be within flood zone 3 and to be within an area benefiting from flood defence. A site-specific flood risk assessment has been submitted and the flood risk context is considered to be acceptable. The existing ground floor plan of West Rivers House shows the community cafe and its associated kitchen, the main entrance to the building, and the offices currently occupied by Magna Housing. Arrangements on the first and second floor of the building pretty much replicate each other, with a unit of accommodation or dwelling house at the eastern end, and a larger multi-occupancy unit occupying the eastern section of the building, and that replicates more or less on the second floor, but with slightly different bathroom and toileting arrangements. Very little change is proposed at ground floor level within the building, and again the proposals for first and second floor largely replicate, with the unit in the eastern end of the building being split into a small studio and a small one-bed unit, both being self-contained, and the western section of the building being split into two-bed units, that at the western end of the building being accessed by the existing external stair. The arrangement at second floor is very similar, save that it will also include a communal room, a common room for occupiers' use. Bridport Town Council has provided further comments as set out in the update sheet, has specifically advised that it does not seek the withdrawal of this application from committee consideration, and noted that there is strong support for the facility. Set out in the update sheet, the Town Council has specifically requested that the matters set out be reported to committee. These matters being that as the applicant is Dorset Council, which itself has declared a climate emergency, it is disappointing to note that full compliance with climate change policies of the neighbourhood plan has not been achieved. Similarly, that the Town Council would hope that Dorset Council would seek to be an exemplar in development and demonstrate full compliance with neighbourhood plan design policies. Again, noting it's disappointing that the report advises that this will not be the case. And thirdly, that the parking area referred to in the report is owned and managed by Bridport Town Council, and that any arrangements for reserved parking, electrical vehicle charging points, etc., as set out in the report, would need landowners' permission. The Town Council further note that they'd be happy to work with the applicant on these matters, but that the committee should be advised the provisions as set out are not wholly within the applicant's gift. They've also commented that the Town Council appreciates that there is a balance to be struck between policy compliance and the overall merits of the application, and that they would not seek to oppose the development on the basis of the lack of compliance as outlined in the report, but the applicant is encouraged to consider amelioration, particularly in respect of climate change, in delivering the development if this can be achieved without significantly delaying the project. In response to the Town Council's further comments, I'm content that the policy issues are adequately addressed within the report. In terms of land ownership and site management arrangements, my view is that it would be appropriate to amend the wording of recommended condition 4 set out in the report, and again as set out in the update sheet, so as to read: prior to the first residential occupation of any of the flats hereby permitted, a scheme for the provision and management of parking spaces and vehicle manoeuvring areas within the red-edged area shown on the application site location plan, Dorset property drawing number A010 revision P1, dated March 2020. And I should double check that plan isn't in fact labelled 2021. No, it will be 2020. Shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The submitted scheme shall include a timetable for implementation of the proposed parking and manoeuvring arrangements. All parking and manoeuvring areas shall be laid out in accordance with the arrangements detailed in the approved scheme, and shall thereafter be maintained for the approved purposes and kept free from other obstruction. The purpose of this suggested change is specifically, rather than specifically requiring the requirement shown on the submitted site plan, to enable the council to approve arrangements that have been agreed and supported by all those with an interest in the land ownership of the site. The reason for the condition would read: to ensure adequate provision is made and maintained for vehicular parking and manoeuvring in the interest of safety and having regard to policy COM 9 of the adopted Weymouth and Portland Local Plan 2015. I've advised both the applicant and the Town Council of my intention to recommend this revised wording, and neither party has raised any objection to the suggested change. There are no other updates to the report, so the recommendation is that the committee resolve that it is minded to grant the application subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 13.1 of the report, save that recommended condition 4 be amended in accordance with the wording set out on the update sheet. That concludes my presentation, but obviously I'll be happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Ducks in a row. Okay. Right. I now call on Hugh Williams. I now call on Councillor Dave Bolwell, the ward member, to address the committee. Good morning, Dave, and would you like to address the committee, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, as already stated, I've withdrawn from the debate and voting as I was Chair of Planning when Bridport Town Council gave its strong support for this application. As with many applications we see, Bridport are often the first to respond, and we rarely have the opportunity to take the views of the Conservation Officer or Highways or indeed the Planning Officer into account before making our decision and commenting on a particular application. Please note that due to the technical hitch, this application was also due for removal from the agenda, but as Chair of the Town Council Planning Committee and in conjunction with the advice of our Town Clerk, I made a delegated decision to proceed with a review by committee, but submit a summary in response to the report from the officer, which you've just heard. When originally considering this proposal, it was agreed by all that it fitted our local need for one-bedroom properties. And even though the room dimensions were slightly questionable, slightly too small on occasions, according to the MPPF, we supported this application in principle. When making decisions, we often have to trust that any parts of the proposal that do not comply with the MPPF or the local plan, or even the made neighbourhood plan, will be picked up by those who have the expertise and are paid by Dorset Council to make overall decisions. There are apparent issues with this application that were not noticed or apparent at the time, two apparents, of our appraisal, and I refer back to the last paragraph of the summary email from Bridport Town Council. We would not want our approval of an application that does not fully comply with our neighbourhood plan to be seen as a general acceptance that would weaken the weight given to future applications. It is a balance, and each case, as we know, should be judged on its individual merits. But following the change in condition 4 regarding the parking and the acknowledgement that the asset is owned by Bridport Town Council, on balance, as ward member, I feel this application should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dave, for that comment. Is there a statement to be given by Councillor Kelvin Clayton? No. Okay. All right. Well, then I'll go back to a call on Hugh Williams to respond with any salient points he may wish to clarify.
Thank you, Chair. Don't want to be overly pedantic on this point, but just for clarification, I have raised the ownership and management issues with representatives of the council as applicant, and have not been able to elicit a definite position from the council as applicant on land ownership. Bridport Town Council have indicated that they own part of the site and manage part of the site, and I've no reason to doubt what they are saying, but I haven't been able to confirm. The applicant hasn't actually confirmed that is the case. So the condition with Bridport Town Council being aware of the proposals and having made their position clear, I'm content to proceed recommending the conditions as modified, but probably should make clear that I haven't had an acknowledgement from anybody within Dorset Council that the ownership is confirmed as as suggested in the councillor's statement. I don't dispute that they do own it, but I cannot confirm that that is correct.
Okay, Hugh, thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Chairman,
Yes,
Councillor
yes,
Dave Bolwell would like to come back on what the officer has just said, please.
Okay, yes, Dave, would you like to come in again?
Yeah, just to clear it up, we're not seeing this as a sticking point regarding the parking. I think it's, I can understand you may have an issue with the clarification of it. I think the town council are pretty sure, but I don't see that this is an issue that should prevent the application going forward in any way, and it's subject for future discussion. So I don't see that's a problem, Hugh, but thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer?
I have Councillor Jean Dunseith, Chairman, if it is indeed a technical question, followed by Councillor Paul Kimber.
Okay, Councillor Dunseith, you have a technical question?
I believe it to be so, Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Go ahead.
Excellent news, Jean. Excellent news.
I have a question about the size of the 2 studio flats. Now, I understand these are basically going to be used for emergency accommodation. And it does say in the report that some of this accommodation is not entirely in accordance with nationally described space standards. Could someone remind me of what the space standard is for just single accommodation, please? And what is the space of the studio flats? Thank you, Chairman.
Right, would you like to answer that, Hugh?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I just rifling through a pile of papers to get the correct notes. The national technical standards define various measurements and areas for different facilities, including for 1-bedroom flats or 1-bedroom units, a total floor area, minimum floor area of 37 square meters.
Right.
The standards do not refer or do not mention studio apartments, but I am aware that Homes England do on occasion fund studio apartments that are smaller than the 37 square meters as on the basis of that being an exception to the space standard. Now the smallest of the units is just under, by my calculation, just under 22 square meters, which is clearly quite a long way under the prescribed technical standard. I have discussed this with representatives of the councillor's applicant, and the comments have been the point that has been put to me is that these units are intended to meet a specific need, and that certainly currently the ability to have small units suitable for sort of emergency and short-term use will be a valuable resource, particularly so if residents need to self-isolate for a period. But I haven't proposed a specific limitation on either the sort of nature or the length of occupancy for the units that are below the technical standards, although that is something that the committee could consider doing. And in part, my reasoning for not doing so is that the proposed layout of the building does lend itself to quite easy modification were the use of these units to change in the future. The smallest units, the 1-bed units and the studio, are contained within the western end of the building, and were at some point in the future the decision to be taken to combine these units to provide a 2-bed apartment instead of the 1-bed unit and the studio, it would be a simple matter of changing the front door for the studio and for the studio in at the south of the building and the 1-bed apartment to the north to being the door at the corridor. On that basis, I don't believe that a condition is strictly necessary, but I do accept that as proposed, there is a degree of conflict with the development plan requirement to comply with the technical standards.
Thank you, Chairman. So if we are saying then, as is mentioned, that these studio units will be for emergency and short term, I mean, I wouldn't be too happy about asking someone to live in it for a few months, but if you're talking about a few nights, then it's probably better than the alternative. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, and I understand there was another person wanting to speak. Was that John Worth, Bill?
No, it was Councillor Paul Kimber, Chairman.
Oh, it was. Beg your pardon. Beg your pardon, Paul. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. And I can say from the outset, from my days as Chair and Vice Chair of Housing in Weymouth and Portland, I do know this building, and this building has always been around the emergency housing concept of, I remember some years ago it used to be for young people. Jean raised the concerns, or there's been raised concerns about parking was one, and the other concern I wanted to have, I'm an avid listener of Today in the Morning, and I'm sure most councillors and officers sort of listen to it from time to time, but there was a concern about whether we've got it right as regards to global warming and rivers getting deeper and bigger and wider. I just wondered if that latest concern has been taken into consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I hand that back to Hugh for
Thank you, Chairman. There's two sort of particular aspects of the application, sort of in respect to climate change. One is the location of the building within flood zone 3, but albeit within an area benefiting from flood defence, and the other is the environmental performance standard of the building. As far as flood risk is concerned, this application isn't in fact increasing the floor space within the area at flood risk. It is, all of this accommodation is already in residential use. It is also none of it at ground floor level, save for the access and egress from the building. There has been a site-specific flood risk assessment, and on the basis of that assessment, both the Environment Agency, or no objections have been received from the Environment Agency or the Council's own flood risk management team. Important within that provision is the fact that it's an existing building with this floor space being at first and second floor and already in residential use. On the second matter, on environmental performance, I don't have detailed calculations for the comparable carbon implications of the building continuing use as it currently is, as compared to as it is proposed. but the applicant has pointed out that the proposals are to bring this building up to current building regulation standards or beyond, and are also looking at various sustainable technologies to assist in improving the environmental performance of the building. The application does not provide full details of all of those measures, so I haven't been able to set them out and specifically require them by planning condition, but I am satisfied that, broadly speaking, the proposal is in accordance with current development plan requirements for environmental performance, and I'm recommending it on that basis.
Thank you. All right. Okay.
Councillor Sarah Williams, Chairman.
Sarah Williams. Okay. Councillor Williams, do you have a technical question?
I believe this is a technical question, yes.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Regarding the external staircase, Hugh, is that going to be the only access into the flats?
It's the only access to the 2 units, I believe, on at the western end, but whether there is actually an emergency connecting door, it doesn't appear to be detailed on the plan, but whether this has been drawn to make clear that this is the division. If building regulations require a secondary means of exit, then the provision could be made through providing a door in what is currently the joint, the connecting corridor.
Yeah.
But that is primarily a building regs rather than a planning requirement.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether that staircase is sort of. It looks like it was originally built as a fire escape, and whether that's going to be safe for people to potentially have to bring buggies up or carry shopping up. It's an open staircase.
There is mention in the application of some alteration of it, so I believe that the applicant team is aware of its of its condition and suitability. I believe it's a matter of adapting what is there rather than completely replacing it. But again, under the building regulations, I would imagine that is a matter that will be checked and confirmed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's answered my questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Right, okay. Is there any other questions of a technical nature?
Indeed not, Chairman.
Before I open the debate, members, may I remind you to direct any questions or remarks through the chair, and I will invite members to speak in turn. Requests to speak need to be made through the virtual chat facility. Can I also remind members that the chat facility is for the smooth running of the meeting and must not be used for discussion on the merits of an application. And please keep microphones on mute when not speaking to preserve audio quality. And I now open the debate to members. Who would like to speak first?
Councillor Weller, Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Thanks very much, Chairman. I'd like to congratulate Bridport Town Council on an example of really good partnership working between the developers and ourselves, because their comments were very useful and a very useful addition to the officers' report, and they seem to me to be very circumspect in what they're doing. I'm concerned about the small size, particularly of the studio flats, but as the officer says and as the council say, on balance what we're gaining allows, I think, for that exception. I would simply like to, I'm very much in support of this because it does provide for an obvious need. I would just like it to be very much noted that building or providing these smaller units is an exception. We wouldn't normally be saying, what was it you suggested, 22 square metres, Hugh? 22 square metres is not adequate accommodation by any manner of means. But in these exceptional circumstances, I think it is acceptable. So it's really a congratulations to all of you. I think that this is a very sensible use of this building for these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. That's very kind. All right. Who do we have to speak next, Bill?
Nobody at all, Chairman.
I'll go back to Councillor Weller.
Okay.
Your enthusiasm, Councillor Weller. Are you proposing acceptance of this?
Yes, I would propose that we approve the recommendations together with the amended. I think it was recommendation 4, wasn't it?
On the bell, Chairman. Right on the bell. Councillor Paul Kimber would like to speak before you seek a seconder.
Okay. All right. Right. Okay, Paul. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. And if the Britport members don't mind, I'd like to second as well. I know this site, I know this building, and it will, and many of you will know that one of my key aims is to reduce homelessness throughout Dorset. Just a small problem, but I would definitely like to second this, and I think this and also Kate has said about the congratulations. I was only thinking of the work that the Britport Town Council has done also in ensuring this this goes ahead. So I'm happy to second, Chair.
Okay. In seconding the proposal, Paul, are you also quite happy with the changes to the condition 4?
Yeah, I am. As you said, it's for temporary, and I was only thinking during my times throughout my life when I've experienced homelessness, I didn't argue about the size of the space I was in. I was only too pleased to find a bed and the help I was getting. So yes, I'm quite very happy to support that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kimber. Do we have any more speakers, Bill?
No, you're free to go to the vote, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. If there's no more deliberation and members are content they have heard the entire presentation and debate, I will seek a proposal to take a vote to make a minded to resolution by roll call. And so I'm going to start off but with Councillor Susan Cocking.
For, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Jean Dunseth.
Minded to approve, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bill Pipe.
Also minded to approve, Chairman.
Oh, that's very formal. Very good. Councillor Nick Ireland.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. For clarity, Councillor Paul Kimber.
For, Chair.
Councillor Louis O'Leary.
Councillor O'Leary.
Councillor O'Leary.
For, Chair. Can you hear me?
Was that a 4, Bill?
Yes, it was a 4, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Weller, for clarity.
Sorry, it was 4, Chairman. 4, Chair. Sorry. The connection's not very good.
Thank you, Louis. We got that.
And for clarity, Councillor Weller, you're 4?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Williams.
Minded to approve.
Thank you. And Councillor John Ware.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. I believe, therefore, that is a unanimous decision to make a minded to resolution. And my next job is to call on Mr. Mike Garrity to make a formal decision on this particular item.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've noted the debate and all the comments are minded to in favour of the recommendation, including the amendment, which I note and are fully supportive of. So we can move forward on that basis. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That's therefore approved by the formal. So, okay, and there's no other items on the agenda other than urgent items, item 5 on the agenda. I've had no prior notification of any items of business which is considered to be urgent pursuant to section 100B 4B of the Local Government Act 1972. I therefore bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much for your indulgence, everyone. It's much shorter than perhaps we've originally anticipated, but thank you for your participation.